1604. A year etched in history, a year of simmering discontent. In a shadowy London tavern, far from the prying eyes of the authorities, 5 men gather, not for the merriment of drink, but for the grave purpose of revolution. The air is thick with anticipation and a palpable sense of danger. They are bound together, not by friendship or kinship, but by a secret oath, a solemn vow taken under the cover of darkness. An oath, one that could irrevocably change the course of England forever, or lead to their agonizing and public destruction. The stakes are impossibly high. This clandestine meeting marks the true birth of the Gunpowder Plot, a conspiracy that would echo through the ages. At the head of the table, Robert Catesby leads, his conviction burning brighter and fiercer than the flickering candlelight that illuminates their faces. He is the driving force, the unwavering believer. Beside him sits Thomas Wintour, a man of intellect and caution, yet drawn into this dangerous game. Then there's Jack Wright, a loyal and trusted companion, ready to follow Catesby into the abyss. Thomas Percy, a man of noble birth, brings wealth and influence to the table, adding another layer of complexity to the plot. And finally, the infamous Guy Fawkes, a name that would become synonymous with treason and rebellion. Fawkes is no ordinary conspirator. He's a seasoned soldier, a master of explosives, a man who knows how to handle the deadly tools of their trade. He is the muscle, the technical expertise, the unwavering hand that will carry out the most dangerous part of the mission. Their hands rest solemnly on a prayer book, a symbol of their faith, as they swear an oath of absolute secrecy, binding them together in this perilous endeavor. Their audacious plan is nothing short of revolutionary, to strike a devastating blow at the very heart of Protestant England. The carefully chosen target? The state opening of Parliament, a day of pomp, ceremony, and concentrated power. With King James himself in attendance, his young heir, the future of the Stuart dynasty, the assembled lords, the pillars of the English aristocracy, and the bishops, the spiritual leaders of the Anglican Church, all gathered in one place at one fateful moment. They believe that one earth-shattering explosion will be enough to wipe out the entire ruling class, toppling the government and creating a power vacuum. From the ashes of destruction, they hope to spark a widespread Catholic uprising, a rebellion that will sweep across the land. For these men, driven to the edge, this is not merely a political act but a holy mission, a divinely ordained crusade. Their desperate actions are born from years of relentless persecution, systematic oppression, and the bitter sting of broken promises. They had placed their hopes, however naively, on King James's promise of religious tolerance, a promise that quickly proved to be hollow. That initial flicker of hope has long since been extinguished, replaced by a gnawing sense of desperation and a burning desire for change. Now, blinded by their convictions, they see only one viable path forward, a path paved with danger and destruction. They have resolved to answer injustice with the explosive force of gunpowder, to tear down the old order and build a new one from the ruins. In that dimly lit, smoke-filled room, the fuse is metaphorically lit. England stands precariously on the brink of unimaginable chaos. These men are not naive. They fully understand the immense risks they are taking. Failure means certain death, a gruesome public execution. But success, however improbable, could mean salvation, religious freedom, and the triumph of their long-suffering faith. They are united by a shared belief, driven to the edge by desperation, bound together by a dangerous brotherhood. And they are ready, willing, and determined to risk absolutely everything for their cause. The Gunpowder Plot is no longer just a whispered idea in the shadows. It has become a tangible, deadly reality, a conspiracy set in motion. The Cellar Meeting draws to a close, the conspirators dispersing back into the anonymity of London. But the conspiracy itself has only just begun its treacherous journey. The fate of an entire nation, the future of England, now hangs precariously on the actions of a mere handful of men, and on the explosive potential of 36 carefully concealed barrels of gunpowder, waiting silently beneath the Houses of Parliament. The countdown to November the 5th, the day that will either change history or condemn them all, has officially begun. To truly understand the depth of Catesby's desperation, the lengths he was willing to go to, you have to see England as it was, a nation not just divided, but violently torn apart by faith, a land where religious conviction could be a death sentence. Decades of religious whiplash, from Henry VIII's break with Rome to the shifting allegiances of his successors, left Catholics branded as traitors in the eyes of the law and much of the populace. Their loyalty was constantly in question. every whispered prayer, every secret gathering viewed with suspicion and mistrust. Attending Mass, the central act of Catholic worship, was an illegal and dangerous act. Priests who dared to minister to their flocks faced unspeakable torture and a gruesome death. Recusant Catholics, those who refused to attend Anglican services, were systematically fined into ruin, their wealth slowly but surely drained away by crippling penalties. Their faith was not just discouraged, it was actively squeezed out by the relentless pressure of the law, designed to impoverish and marginalize them. Hopes, however, tentatively rose when James I, son of the Catholic Mary Queen of Scots, ascended to the throne. His own mother had been a devout Catholic, and his wife, Anne of Denmark, was known to be sympathetic to their plight. For a brief moment, it seemed as though things might finally change for the better, that a new era of tolerance might be dawning. Fines were eased, and a fragile sense of optimism flickered in the darkness, a hope that perhaps, at long last, they could practice their faith in peace. But the rising tide of anti-Catholic sentiment in Parliament, fueled by Puritan zealots and political opportunists, quickly crushed those nascent hopes. James, bowing to political pressure, reinstated the very harsh laws that had so oppressed them, publicly declaring his utter detestation of the Catholic faith and vowing to enforce the anti-Catholic laws with renewed vigor. For Catesby and his fellow Catholics, this was the ultimate betrayal, a crushing blow to their hopes for religious freedom. They had waited patiently, for years, even decades, pleaded with the king for leniency, begged for the right to worship in peace, and been endlessly patient, only to be met with renewed persecution and punished yet again for their unwavering faith. The king's promised olive branch of peace had been twisted into a weapon, used to further oppress and marginalize them. Years of simmering resentment finally boiled over into a desperate conviction that something drastic had to be done. If peaceful pleas and respectful petitions had consistently failed to move the king or parliament, maybe, just maybe, only an act of shocking violence would finally be heard, would force them to acknowledge the depth of their suffering. The religious tinderbox of England was bone dry, years of oppression having created a highly flammable atmosphere. All it needed was a single spark to ignite the whole nation in a conflagration of religious fury. The Gunpowder Plot, with its audacious plan to obliterate the king and parliament, was that spark, born from a deep and unwavering faith, fueled by the burning anger of injustice and the desperate hope for religious freedom. England, teetering on the brink of chaos, was ready to explode in a cataclysmic burst of violence, and the plotters, driven by their faith and their fury, were ready to light the fuse that would change England forever. Who were these men? Not outcasts, but gentlemen, driven by faith and fury. Robert Catesby, charismatic, ruined by persecution, convinced only violence could save his faith. Guy Fawkes, the soldier, the expert, recruited for his skill with gunpowder. Fawkes was no leader, but he was the man in the cellar, ready to strike. The group grew, friends, relatives, men of means and muscle. Thomas Percy, with access to Parliament, the Wright brothers, swordsmen, Rookwood and Digby, for money and horses. Bound by secrecy, they saw themselves as soldiers in a holy war. They risked everything for a cause they believed was greater than themselves. Their conviction made them dangerous. The Gunpowder Plot was in the hands of men who would stop at nothing. The plan was simple: destroy Parliament in one devastating blow. The state opening of Parliament, King, Heir, Lords, Commons, all in one room. The plotters first tried tunneling from a rented house, digging in darkness, haunted by fear of discovery. Then, fortune struck. A cellar directly beneath the House of Lords became available. Thomas Percy secured it. No more digging, just a perfect hiding place. Guy Fawkes moved in 36 barrels of gunpowder, enough to obliterate the building. Fawkes would light the fuse, then escape across the Thames. Meanwhile, the others would trigger an uprising, seize Princess Elizabeth, and install her as a Catholic monarch. It was audacious, detailed, and terrifyingly close to success. Every step was a gamble, every day a risk. The plotters believed God was on their side. The gunpowder waited in the dark. The fate of England balanced on a single spark. The plan was set. The countdown continued. Why risk everything? For the plotters, this was about faith, not just politics. They saw the Protestant regime as a threat to souls, not just power. Years of persecution, betrayal by the king, and personal loss fueled their resolve. They believed peaceful options were gone. Violence was the only answer. Their hope, a free England for Catholics, a new world born from fire. But their plan meant mass murder. Hundreds of innocents would die. They justified it as holy war, blinded by zeal. The line between martyr and terrorist blurred in the smoke of their ambition. As November 5th rapidly approached, the conspirators found that their carefully constructed secrecy began to crack under the pressure. The weight of their impending actions started to take its toll. The plot had grown far too large. It encompassed too many men, each with their own doubts and fears. With so many involved, there were too many risks, too many opportunities for exposure. The chances of success dwindled with each passing day. Some conspirators, grappling with their consciences, worried deeply about the innocent Catholics who would inevitably die in the blast, collateral damage in their pursuit of political change. In a twist of fate, an anonymous letter, penned with a mixture of concern and treachery, warned Lord Monteagle to avoid Parliament on that fateful day, for a terrible blow was coming, a catastrophe of unimaginable scale. Lord Monteagle, understandably alarmed by the cryptic message, made the crucial decision to take the letter directly to Robert Cecil, the king's highly astute and ever-watchful spymaster. Cecil, a master of intrigue and deception, chose to wait, carefully watching the movements of the conspirators, subtly letting the plotters continue, lulling them into a false sense of security, making them believe their plans were still safely concealed. He then presented the letter to King James, sharing the intelligence and seeking royal guidance. The king, recognizing the potential threat, swiftly ordered a thorough search of Parliament and its surrounding buildings. The initial search was conducted in a seemingly casual manner. The search party found only firewood and a rather grim-faced man calling himself John Johnson, who was guarding the cellar. But Cecil, with his years of experience in the shadows, wasn't fooled by the surface appearance. A second, more intensive search, conducted in the dead of night, finally uncovered the shocking truth that lay hidden beneath the Parliament building. Guy Fawkes was caught red-handed, desperately ready to flee the scene and escape the consequences of his actions. 36 barrels of gunpowder were discovered, concealed within the cellar, a quantity of explosives more than enough to completely obliterate Parliament and everyone inside. Fawkes's pocket watch, intended to precisely time the explosion, and the slow matches, ready to ignite the fuse, irrevocably sealed the evidence against him and his co-conspirators. The gunpowder plot, with all its intricate planning and dangerous ambition, was definitively over. The man who was meant to light the fuse and unleash the devastating explosion was now securely held in chains. England awoke to the astonishing news of a miraculous escape from utter disaster. A collective sigh of relief sweeping across the land. The conspirators' audacious dream of revolution had been reduced to nothing more than ashes and bitter regret. The nation was saved from a terrible fate. But the reckoning for those involved was just beginning, with justice looming on the horizon. The infamous gunpowder plot had failed spectacularly, leaving behind a legacy of intrigue and cautionary tales. With Fawkes captured, the hunt began. Tortured in the tower, Fawkes resisted, then broke, revealing names, signing confessions with a trembling hand. Meanwhile, Catesby and others fled, hoping for a last stand. Their support vanished. They were cornered at Holbeach House. A final shootout. Catesby and Percy killed, denying the state a public execution. The survivors were dragged to London, tried and condemned, their punishment hanged, drawn, and quartered, a gruesome warning to all. Their bodies were displayed as a message. This is the price of treason. The state had its revenge. The plotters' dream ended in blood and horror. England's rulers made sure no one would forget. The gunpowder plot became a lesson in terror and control. The age of paranoia had begun. The failed plot sparked national relief and a new tradition. Parliament declared November 5th a day of Thanksgiving. Bonfires blazed, effigies burned, and fireworks lit the sky. Over time, anti-Catholic fury faded, but Guy Fawkes became the face of the plot. Children made guys to burn chanting, "Remember, remember the 5th of November." The story became folklore, a real-life thriller of betrayal and near disaster. Fawkes's image with hat and mustache became a symbol of rebellion. The plot's memory endures because it speaks to our fears of hidden threats and fragile order. Bonfire Night is more than fireworks. It's a reminder of how close England came to catastrophe. History could have taken a very different path. The gunpowder plot failed spectacularly and made life worse for Catholics. The government responded with harsher laws, torture, and executions. The plotters became villains, their cause set back for centuries. But can violence ever kill an idea? The state tried, but Catholic resistance went underground. The story forces us to ask, where's the line between freedom fighter and terrorist? The victors wrote the plotters as traitors, but their desperation was born of oppression. Their ideas of faith, freedom, and resistance survived. The smoke cleared, but the questions remain. The Gunpowder plot warns us. When people lose hope, even the unthinkable becomes possible.